For anyone looking at this result as just another local special election, you're missing the bigger picture, and that's exactly where most people get it wrong. What just happened in Florida's District 87 is not about one seat, one candidate, or one night. This is about a structural shift beginning to show itself in places where it wasn't expected. A district that previously leaned Republican by nearly 19 percentage points doesn't just flip randomly. That kind of movement signals pressure building underneath the surface. Pressure that has likely been ignored, underestimated, or dismissed until now. And when that pressure shows up in a district that includes Mar-a-Lago, arguably one of the most symbolic centers of Republican influence, it stops being a local story and starts becoming a national signal. From a broader U.S. political standpoint, this is exactly how early shifts begin. Not with headlines screaming collapse, but with unexpected cracks appearing in what were once considered safe zones. Special elections are often dismissed because of lower turnout, but that's precisely why they matter. They expose which side is more motivated, more organized, and more prepared to act. And right now, based on the pattern we're starting to see, Democrats are not just competing, they are finding ways to outperform expectations. That doesn't mean dominance, but it does mean momentum. And momentum, especially heading into a midterm cycle, is something that can quickly reshape the battlefield if it continues unchecked. Now, let's break this down properly because the easy explanation here is to say this was just a turnout issue. And yes, turnout absolutely plays a role in special elections, but reducing this result to turnout alone is a strategic mistake. Turnout is not random. It reflects motivation, urgency, and engagement. If one side consistently shows up more than the other, that's not luck. That's an advantage. And what we're seeing here raises a serious question. Are Republican voters becoming less engaged in certain local races, or are Democratic voters becoming more strategically mobilized? Either way, the imbalance matters more than the label attached to it. But there's another layer to this that cannot be ignored. Even if this was partially driven by turnout, it still reveals a deeper vulnerability. A district that once delivered a nearly 20-point margin should not be competitive under normal conditions. So when it flips, it suggests that something has shifted, whether it's voter confidence, local messaging, or broader political sentiment. And here's the critical point. Elections are not won on past margins, they're won on current engagement. If Republicans assume previous dominance guarantees future results, they risk underestimating the kind of localized, targeted efforts that can quietly flip outcomes. This isn't just about who voted, it's about who showed up when it mattered. Emily Gregory's victory is not just about her as an individual candidate, it represents a broader strategic approach that Democrats have been refining. She entered the race as a first-time candidate, which on paper should have been a disadvantage. But in reality, it allowed her to operate without the baggage of established political identity. That can be powerful in a localized race, especially when combined with timing and focused messaging. Her own comments suggest that this wasn't accidental. There was a calculated belief that this district could be flipped, even when the numbers didn't initially support it. That kind of positioning reflects a campaign that understood opportunity, not just probability. On the other side, John Maples had structural advantages that, in theory, should have secured the seat. Endorsements from Donald Trump and other Republican figures typically carry weight, especially in a district aligned with Republican voters. But endorsements alone don't win elections. Execution does. And this is where the gap becomes visible. If high-profile backing does not translate into voter turnout or engagement, then its effectiveness becomes questionable in certain contexts. This raises a deeper strategic concern. Are national-level endorsements losing impact in localized elections, or was this simply a failure to activate the base? Either way, the outcome suggests that relying on established influence without strong ground-level execution is no longer enough. This is where the situation becomes more serious, particularly for Republicans heading into the midterms. Political strongholds are not lost in a single moment. They erode over time through a series of small, often overlooked shifts. What we're seeing here is not a collapse, but a warning. A district that was once considered secure is now vulnerable, and vulnerability spreads if it's not addressed. The danger is not just losing one seat, it's the possibility that similar conditions exist in other districts that haven't yet been tested. And if those conditions are ignored, the impact can scale quickly. From a Democratic perspective, this result reinforces a very specific narrative: competitiveness. Winning in traditionally unfavorable areas expands strategic options and forces opponents to defend more territory. That alone can shift campaign dynamics, resource allocation, and overall momentum. But here's the critical distinction: momentum is only valuable if it's sustained. If Democrats can replicate this pattern across multiple races, it becomes a structural advantage. If not, it risks being seen as an isolated win. The key question moving forward is not whether this victory matters, it's whether it can be repeated. Midterm elections are often shaped by broader national sentiment, but they are also influenced by localized trends that build over time. What makes this situation complex is that special elections can sometimes exaggerate momentum due to lower turnout and unique circumstances. So the challenge here is distinguishing between signal and distortion. Is this result an early indicator of shifting voter behavior? Or is it a temporary alignment of conditions that favored one side? The answer will depend on whether similar outcomes continue to appear in other districts leading up to November. However, ignoring this result would be a mistake. Even if it's not definitive, it contributes to a growing pattern that suggests increased competitiveness. And in politics, perception matters almost as much as reality. If one party is seen as gaining ground, even incrementally, it can influence fundraising, media narratives, and voter confidence. For Americans, the broader implication is that the political landscape may be entering a more contested phase. And when competition increases, so does unpredictability. That unpredictability is what makes upcoming elections more consequential, not just for parties, but for policy direction and governance. What we are witnessing here is not a conclusion. It's the early stage of a potential shift. Political change rarely announces itself clearly at the beginning. It starts with moments like this: unexpected outcomes that challenge existing assumptions. The real mistake is not in overreacting, but in underestimating what these moments represent. When patterns begin to form, even subtly, they deserve attention. And right now, the pattern suggests that certain areas once considered stable may no longer be as predictable as they once were. For the US audience, the takeaway is not about choosing sides, it's about understanding dynamics. Elections are not static events, they are reflections of evolving conditions. Economic pressures, political messaging, voter engagement, all of these factors interact to shape outcomes. What happened in this Florida district is one piece of a larger puzzle. But if similar pieces continue to fall into place, the overall picture could look very different by the time midterm elections arrive. The real question is not whether this was surprising. The question is whether it's the beginning of something larger. Thanks for watching Bluepeak Reports, and I'll see you in the next video.